sixth graders, this is what we learned today in class today. We learned how to divide fractions. So if you were not here, copy the table of contents. Just be careful with the date though. But today is 10-6-17. Copy the standard math practice, dividing fractions. You could pause the video and then restart it again once you're done. Okay? The essential question that we learned today was what is a reciprocal? So that's what we learned today. So again, pause the video so you can write the essential question. Remember, you skip 3 lines after the essential question. Okay, so the only vocabulary word that I went over today was the reciprocal, okay? So you know as a fraction has a numerator over the denominator. The top number is known as a numerator, the bottom number is known as a denominator. A reciprocal in class today, I call it the reciprocal flippical. You're pretty much flipping the fraction, okay? So if the numerator is on the top, what's the opposite of the top? Good, it's the bottom. So then the numerator will be at the bottom, okay? Write this down on your notes. If the denominator is at the bottom, therefore the opposite will be good, the top. Then we're going to put the denominator here, okay? So this is what a reciprocal is. You're pretty much flipping a fraction. So instead of being numerator to denominator, it's going to be denominator to numerator. Let's go over some examples so you could use reciprocal. So the first example that we are going to go over is number 1. Okay, copy this down on your notebook. So we have 3/4. Okay? First of all, what type of fraction is 3/4? If you said it was a proper fraction, you are correct, because the numerator is bigger than the denominator. Therefore, the reciprocal is going to be, remember, reciprocal, flippical. We're going to flip it. So it's going to be 4/3. Okay? And that's it. That's how you find a reciprocal. Now remember, this is an example of an improper fraction. So you went from a proper to an improper. This is improper because the numerator is bigger than the denominator. Let's give you another example. Number 2. What if we start with the improper fraction, Hernandez? 15/7. Improper because the numerator is bigger than the denominator. Reciprocal, flippical. So therefore we just flip them. So then your reciprocal will be 7/15. And that's it. This is a proper fraction. Let's give you another one. Number 3. What happens if I give you a whole number, like 13? First of all, when we're talking about reciprocals, we're kind of incorporating fractions into it. Is this a fraction? If you said no, you are correct. This is a whole number. So how do I make it into a fraction? We learned that in class already. So if you said put it over 1, you were correct. So therefore the reciprocal, remember reciprocal, flippical, is going to be 1/13. And that's it. This is an example of a proper fraction. Numerator is bigger. I'm sorry. It's the numerator is less than the denominator. Okay? What happens if I give you a mixed number? So let's say 2 1/2. Okay? Be careful. This is not a reciprocal. 2 and 2/1. Right? Because first of all, you should have said, well, Hernandez, we need to turn this mixed number into an improper fraction. So the way you do this first is, remember how we did it in class? Multiply the denominator times the whole number, that is 4, then add it to the numerator, that will be 5. So therefore this is 2 1/2 is also known as 5/2. Now let's take the reciprocal of that, so then it's going to be 2/5. Okay? And then some of you guys asked me in class, well, what about negative fractions? So let's do -1/2. Remember, reciprocal only reciprocates the fraction. It doesn't change the sign. So if it was negative at the beginning, it stays negative. So therefore, the reciprocal of 1/2 is going to be, just flip it, 2/1. But remember, if you have a 1 on the denominator, you don't have to put it. So the answer is just -2. So these are the examples that we went over in class. What I'm going to give you right now are some examples that we did in the whiteboard. I want you to solve these problems, pause the video first, and then solve the problems, and I'll give you the answers. So let's give you one of the questions. Number 1, let's give you 2/5. Number 2, 11/7. Number 3, -2/3. Number 4, 3 1/2. And number 5, let's give you 16. Again, pause the video, solve the problems by yourself, and see how you do. So the answers to these questions is 5 over 2, 7 over 11, get it, 7, 11, 3 over 2, don't forget the negative. This one came out to be 7 over 2, which is then the reciprocal will be 2 over 7, and the answer for this one is going to be 1 over 16. And that is reciprocal, okay? Now, Hernandez, why do I care about reciprocal? We use reciprocals in order to divide fractions. That was the second part that we learned today in class. So skip a line, and I want you to copy this title down for me. Dividing fractions. So this is the example that we went over today in class. So we need reciprocals in order to divide fractions, okay? So remember when we converted a fraction into a decimal? We went to what restaurant? We went to In-N-Out. That was a strategy I gave you guys in class. So now, dividing fractions, let's go to another restaurant. Let's go to KFC. How many guys like KFC? Kentucky Fried Chicken. Okay? So, how KFC works is this. We call this KFC. KFC stands for keep, flip the division sign, and then change. Okay? So that's the 3 steps of dividing fractions. So let's go over the first one. 5/9. We're going to keep 5/9. 5/9 does not change. The next thing is flip. We're going to flip the division to the opposite of division, which is multiplication. And then the C stands for change, or we're actually going to reciprocal the second fraction. So the reciprocal of 2/3 is, good, 3 over 2. That's why I taught you reciprocal first. And you already know this, multiply fractions. I like doing method 2, the reducing method. I can't do anything here, but I can reduce here. So that becomes a 3 and a 1. 5 times 1 is 5. 3 times 2 is 6. This is an example of what type of fraction. If you said proper fraction, you're correct. So that means I cannot turn it into a mixed number because this is proper, and that's it. That is my answer. That's how you divide fractions using the KFC method. Keep, flip, change. Let's go over one more. So we have 9/10 divided by 2/5. Okay? Remember our strategy for dividing fractions? KFC. That means the first one is keep the first one. Second part is flip division into what? If you said multiplication, you are correct. And then change the 2/5 or reciprocal it, flippical, it becomes 5 over 2. And then we go ahead and solve this. We can't reduce anything across. What about these two? Can we reduce it? And if you said yes, you are correct. 5 goes into both of this. 5 divided by 5 is 1. 10 divided by 5 is 2. Then you just multiply. Numerator times numerator. 9 times 1 is 9. 2 times 2 is 4. Now, this is an example of what type of fraction. If you said it's improper, you are correct. Remember, we don't like improper fractions as answers. So turn it as a mixed number. Okay? So if you don't remember, numerator goes inside the box. The 4, the denominator goes outside. Remember, we're not turning into a decimal, so therefore we don't have to put decimal 0, like we do in class. So 4 goes into 9 2 times. 4 times 2 is 8. And then some of you guys came in after class and spoke to me like, Hernandez, in 5th grade, we learned it as the upside down C. You're correct, girls. It was the upside down C. This 2 is your whole number. That 1, or the remainder, is known as your numerator. And this 4 is the denominator. So 9 and 2/4 is also 2 and 1/4. And those are the 2 examples we went over in class. Next lesson, we're going to give you more examples of dividing fractions. What I want you to do is just go over your notes, practice these 2 problems again, and I'll see you next time.